I don't have to feel like I'm talking so loud. But anyway, no pressure. I know some people don't like to punch either. So thanks for that.
I've been to the ordinance inspector yet.
Go home.
You got
We're really grateful. The building actually got locked today. He said at 2:30, no one with keys could get in, nothing. They were having an open house, and so they had to. So we're really grateful that it got opened up, so we didn't get locked out tonight. We're going to start with just a couple of announcements, and then we have 2 BAB presentations, and then I'll go ahead and we'll talk about winterizing. But the first thing is, next month we're not meeting here, which never happens except for the barbecue. But next month we're not meeting here. We're going to meet at Linden Nursery. It's by Walmart in Linden. At the bottom of the hill, you know. It's there on your left, it's a red barn. We're gonna meet there. They've offered for us to come in the barn. I believe it's in the barn. It will be in the email. I'm like 95% sure it's the barn, but if not, yeah, it is. Okay, that's it. So we'll meet in the barn there, and we're gonna do honey tasting next month. So bring some honeys, get some samples. We'll have toothpicks and stuff. The more that are there, it's so fun to see what gets brought out of different areas. You can bring falls, you know, if you have a fall and a spring, they're different colors. So that's always fun. We enjoy that. That'd be great. Thank you. So that's next month. The second thing, which everybody's going to tune me out, but is this. We need volunteers. Nothing can run if you don't have people helping, right? And so that's coming up next month. We're going to be doing elections, but also just when things happen, and everybody's busy. So we understand you're just volunteers when you come. We've had some volunteers that are crazy, that have been so busy and had life happen to them this year. Broken legs, surgeries, death after death after death after, I think, probably about 7,000 miles of traveling. I mean, so there's been a lot going on, and lots of people aren't, you know, there's not people. And so if everybody just does a little bit, nobody has to do very much. Cool.
So farm field days are happening right now, and we have a meeting tomorrow morning.
Okay, here we are, volunteers. What time, and where is it at?
It's at the Equestrian Park in Highland, which is just east of Costco, and it's
real close to that.
and I'm looking at my
Now look at your time.
schedule.
Stand up.
Yeah,
10
so
to 11.
tomorrow is farm field days. For those that don't know, we go and talk to second graders. They bring them in groups, and you just have like a 2 to 5, I think it's 5 minutes, but it really have about 2 minutes by the time they get seated and the bell goes off and stuff. You just tell them about bees. They love it. Like we get letters that they're like, this is our favorite thing. It's really short. We tell you what you want to say unless you want to say something on your own. But that's tomorrow. We need somebody from 10 to 11:30. Is that what you said?
Perfect.
We got it right here.
We're doing the afternoon, so we'll clean up all this, like you just said, you show up, talk about these, try to get the attention of second graders.
But it's really not hard.
Oh, it's not hard, it's a little bit like a dumpster fire. It is, it's really great to see them like that.
That's right. It is really fun. It is a lot of fun. So perfect. Well, we've got that handled. So anyway, those are just the 2 housekeeping items, and then we'll just turn it over to our back kids. Do you guys want to go first? Are you doing this tonight? No. Yes, you are. Okay. Do you want to go first? Okay, perfect.
Just dress.
It's not this. This one's okay. It's not. No, it's no, I'm saying no.
Start with security meeting next to it. I'm Daniel. That was so things that had up part of the past year are getting pulled from school to go to swarms, letting branches run low, having the swarms move into our backyard, and threatening home with beast in the car.
In the actual car.
Yeah, because we left our box ready to clean because the swarm we went to had like 3 queens. So, what to? Water and stuff, we have 275 gallon ABC tote, we put a blood in, that's available. Pack, they just register down forward.
Do they use that a lot? Because I don't really love.
Yeah, the pipe checks yet, liquor stew, found the oxalic acid strips probably this weekends. One of our hives, we had on like legs, some of them, the ground got wet, and it dipped. Yeah.
Did it dump it?
Yeah. In some.
Is it laying, so, well,
Okay.
they didn't fall, but the tip like came off. Yeah, it's dragging about 3 hours.
Have you been stoned?
I went 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, that's
That's all.
that's all. That's not too bad.
It's really weak and kid for now.
Probably was
Thank you.
Like,
Hi, to quickly introduce myself, my name is Levi Hills, and I live in Saratoga Springs. This is my first year beekeeping, and we started with 1 to 2 boxes. Now we are up to 5 boxes. We've done 2 months. Part of this did a little honey on accident because they go up to the top of the box and then fry those off. Things I like about beekeeping, the honey, seeing how fast and hard they work to build up their colony. I like how they get used to being around me. I've only gotten stung a couple of times. Things I've learned from beekeeping: 1, not to drop the frames because they get angry. 2, I really enjoy beekeeping. 3, I'm doing school for our germ care lab Buzzwell. Any questions?
What are they? Sleep Okay, I will announce this again the next meeting, just at the end, just so if you think it's one. I think I already did that. You've seen it, and Mel didn't see it. We're going to talk tonight about winterizing your hives. So the way I look at it, well, first of all, I was going to write up on the board, but I didn't want you to disregard everything I had to say. If you ask, what's the question about beekeeping? If you ask a question of beekeeping, you ask 10 beekeepers, you get 11 different answers, right? So I'm going to teach you some basic principles, and then there will be some things you can ask questions like, should I do this? What do you think about this? I can give my opinion, but I'll also ask other people what they've done, because just because I do it doesn't mean that it's the right thing. But there are some things that I feel like are right? So the first thing we're going to talk about then is, I think there are 3 things with winterizing. The first is to make sure that you're queen right. If you don't have a queen, you're in big trouble, right? And right now, if you squish your queen doing an inspection, you're in big trouble because there aren't drones left. I did lose a queen 1 year about this time. It was late September, and like there were queen cells that had hatched, but is she going to get mated? You know, she could go out but come back and she has nothing to do. So you have options there, but your first thing, you're going to make sure you're queen right. And I say next, I almost think this one is more important than that, but it's not. But you're going to just make sure your mites are low. And then the last thing is that there's adequate food. So now we're done with the meeting. Just kidding. Okay, so the first thing, queen right. I know, right? Quick, you guys have to go home. You can go check out their Borealis tonight.
does anybody sell mated queens this time of year?
There's many local guys out there.
I think you probably could get one shipped in, like on Man Lake or something. I'm not sure. I've never looked. So you're wanting to make sure your hive is queen right? So the first thing you're going to do is look in there. What do we look for when we're looking for to know if it's queen right? Levi, what do you do if you're looking for a queen to see if you know if the queen's in there?
That the laying eggs
Yeah, so you're gonna look for eggs or to see the queen. If you see eggs, you don't have to necessarily see the queen, right? This time of year, I like to go through all my boxes, which is kind of a problem too because we have robbing. But I think it's important. I just got into one of my hives and it had 4 boxes on it. The very bottom box, nothing in it. There were bees down there, but the queen wasn't laying down there. Is it because it's a screen bottom board, it's too cold? I don't know. Is it too hot? I have no idea. But I thought I had this deep box and another deep box, and then she was laying in this box, and I thought, that's really weird. Why do I have 3 boxes of brood? So then I can pull that box out, right? Because I don't want just an empty box. So that's kind of, some people don't want to go through your whole hive, and you want to be careful because you don't want to kill your queen. Let's say you're in, and your queen falls on the ground when you're doing this inspection, like happened the other day, and you step on her, right? And then you look down and you're like, what are some options? You can combine hives. So you have 2 hives, you would just take these bees, you place a piece of newspaper in between them, and you would add these bees on the top. You can put little holes there so that they chew through it, and then they will combine. Yeah, you could order a queen, maybe, I don't know, I've never done that this time of year, but combining hives. If this hive is really, really weak, it looks sick, there's a lot of mites, I'd probably just let this one go rather than bring it over to this one. There's no reason to sacrifice a really strong, healthy hive to save a weak one. But I've done it. I've combined them just in hopes. I don't like to kill them either, so that's a personal preference. But that's an option. So queen right. Just make sure you have a queen. Make sure she's laying eggs. Kind of check it out. Like, are there a lot of frames of brood? Do you not have frames of brood? What's going on? You know, that you do want honey in your hive. That has to do with that number 3, food. So obviously they are backfilling some places that she's been laying, but she still should have a place that she can lay eggs. And if not, then you need to kind of do something that way. Maybe pull out some frames, put in some that are drawn out. So that's number 1. Number 2, we want to make sure that the mites are low. Mites, I've never seen mites so high in my years of beekeeping as I've seen this year. I don't know. Grasshoppers are like crazy this year, right? All of the insects are like crazy. So I don't know if it's just a cyclical thing, but I've seen really, really, really high mite counts. If you have not done a mite treatment, if you haven't, and I would definitely check. I put on a mite treatment, my mite numbers are still higher than I like for winter. So I've got to do a secondary one this weekend or early next week. But my point is, check for mites. Check your numbers. Do a mite count. Don't just put on a treatment and assume you're good. I've done that in the past, and that's when I've lost hives. So I really think if you don't do a mite count any other time of year, it's really important you know what your numbers are. Also, it helps you when your hive dies. You're not just like, what happened? Well, I had 20 mites in that hive. I was hoping it would make it, but it didn't, right?
What's your first publishing?
It depends. I've used Formic Pro because it's longer, and so it will get them the ones that are in and being capped. I've used Mite Away strips. Right now it's been weird because the weather's so hot. Like some of the normal fall treatments you can't do. When it was approved, we did sponges. I won't say if I've done the others or not. I will just say that Jenna said she wouldn't call us on it, so I'm gonna stick with that.
She did say she didn't call anybody else from the state if you tell this area to check your hive or anything.
You can
close before you come.
Yeah, pull them if you do have one because you
In
can't.
case you are using them for whatever reasons.
So that's the Caribbean maple. Slowly.
It approved and then pulled. It was pulled back, and then there are some that are approved. You can buy something very similar on Man Lake. They're $90. So
Only down.
for those who, I mean,
That's long.
that's a lot, especially if you know how much they cost to make. So I'm not going to go into my treatment too much, but please, please, please get in, check your hives, check the numbers. Does anyone not know how to do a mite count? I'm not. Okay, so here it is. I don't feel dumb. I'm asking questions, you know, so that you know. So yeah, you're gonna get into your hive. Generally, if you're doing a mite count, I pull out the outer one, right, and I'll come to it. I will answer that in just a second. In the fall, you have problems with robbing, right? So I'm suggesting you get into your whole hive. What happens when you open up this hive and you have hundreds of bees that all of a sudden start coming, you're like, do they belong here? Do they not belong here? And you're like, and then they start getting really frustrated with you, right? So I will tell you a couple of things that I have learned that I think really help. I get an extra top cover for whatever you want. I have a screened top cover that doesn't let bees in or out. It's like a screen bottom board, but you can just put it on and then you can pour soapy water through the top and kill off your bees that way or whatever. But I put that down on the ground and then I take an empty box and I just set that here. So if this is my hive, now I have a bottom board with an empty box. Then I'm going to open up this hive and take off my inner cover, and I take this box and I put it down here and I put my inner cover on, and then I put my lid back onto here, and I put my hive tool on the little hole so that no bees can be getting in as easily. Then I take this lid off and then I set the next box and I just go down to my very bottom box. And now I take another lid and I put it on here, not just the inner cover because there is that hole. So now I pretty much have its own hive here, but these bees can't get in, they can't get out. I don't know if this is good or bad, but that's what I do. Then I have this box that's right here that's left, which is my bottom box, and I take a sheet from my house that is dedicated to beekeeping, and I put it over the top like this. Then I take it and fold it back, I grab out a frame, I pull this over, and then I can look at this one frame, and no bees can get into here. No bees are over here, and when I do that, I really don't have any real problems. Now, if I've been out there a really long time, sometimes it gets really bad. I often can leave this open even, but if you see a lot of bees, like, or wasps, I just keep it covered.
Okay, go over that one more time.
Yep, so I just take, this is my hive stick stacked up here.
Yeah.
You can even just at the bottom, just an empty box on the ground. Part of the reason I do that is because a lot of times these boxes get really heavy, and I'll be honest, if I can have them a little higher on the ground so I don't have to lift them, I'm getting old. And so I put them down, and so I put an empty box, and then I just take the boxes in reverse order, put them all down here, and I cover it with a lid. So no bees can get out of this at all.
Are you putting a cover between each box?
No, I'm not. I just set it there while I'm getting this one. And usually I'll have my husband there helping me or something, but like yesterday I didn't, and I put that inner cover on while I get this box loose, because you know that they don't just, you can't just go, you can't do that. So I put the inner cover on, I get a hive tool, I separate this.
Then you take the inner cover off?
Then I take it off, put it on this one,
Oh, okay.
and set it down. And so really there's no, you could maybe get a wasp, but let it get in there and those bees will take care of it. I'm not that sad, right? So this one then is a complete hive. They can't get in, they can't get out. And then I just have one box that I'm working with. I use a sheet.
Put back together.
Yep, and then I can check this bottom box.
That's really good. I've had a friend who was harvesting, and basically it was like a nightmare.
Yeah, and they get really upset,
And
so.
she basically lost most of her honey, and I think my bees were over there because they were all clustered on the outside of their hives.
Yeah,
And I couldn't help her that day, and she decided her brother.
right, and
She basically gave up beekeeping because it was so frustrating.
it is frustrating. Yeah, even when I pull the honey, I use my sheet. So I use my sheet a lot.
Okay.
I have a sheet, I have it in my beekeeping stuff. I use it when I go get swarms. I put it down on the ground and then I put my thing. So that's when I use it in the spring. I use it in the summer for covering the hive. If I see robbing, in fact, I just added a second sheet today for my bees. So now we have two, but I just put it on, and that really has helped minimize
That really is very
so
good.
much, and I can't
Very
claim
smart.
it. I think I saw it from somebody, or somebody taught me. So let me just answer this really quick. So let's say we get in this bottom box. We should have brood in this bottom box where we want to do the mite check. You pull out this frame, and you got to be really careful with it, right? Because you're going to have, so maybe a tote that you can put it in and close it up so nobody's stealing from it. Yeah, anyway, but then you're gonna just get into here. Try, like I said, you do want to get an overall look, but there's no way most of the time in the fall you can go through frame by frame, or you're gonna have some big problems. But get out this middle one. You see it's got brood on it. This is from my count now, sorry, I'm backtracking back to the question. But so I've got this all over here. Now I'm into this bottom box. I get out this one and I see there's brood. I want brood on it, and preferably not all capped, but some different stages, not just, you don't want eggs, all eggs, right? So I take it, I have a white tote that you get for $3 at Walmart, like a little tub, not a tote. And I have it sitting right here on the table behind me. I take this frame and you can shake it, or you can take it and just go like this.
Oh, you're doing brain testing.
Yeah, this is my testing. So I put all these bees. The first thing you do look for though is the queen, right? And how many of us are excellent at finding the queen? Some of us are really good and most of us are not. Okay, there might be one out of us in this whole room that's like amazing and can see the queen every time or something. You look for the queen, and then once you've shaken them down in here, look for the queen. The other day we did a mind check with my friend. There was the queen. We had looked at the frame, not there, and she was, yeah. So she kind of moves different. The other bees kind of go, and she's like running around. So just look for her, yeah.
Well, wouldn't you be better off going a frame from the side, where you're not going to have your queen on the honey as much, on the side?
Yeah, that's a good question. The reason why you want to have brood on it is because the mites are bred in the brood.
Right.
So those bees are going to have the higher number of brood. So you could, if you're super, it's better to do it over here than not do it at all, but it's best if you can get a frame with brood on it. Yeah.
They attack the brood, they don't attack the honey. They want
Right.
blood, they don't want sweetness.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, but
the mites.
I would assume that don't they spread throughout the whole hive?
So the mite, right, yeah, they can get on other bees, but it's like a
They're gonna jump-
parasite,
yeah,
right?
They're gonna jump off of the adult bees into larvae
Yeah, they
right
do that.
before they cap it, so you want the
Right,
bees.
so they
to
are
just
on
cap
the,
it.
if they are on the bees that are wandering around, but the mites are looking to go into the brood because that's where they reproduce.
And when they come out of the brood, they become nurse bees.
Right, and so
they're
they are on, the nurse bees are the ones that if they do have them on them, generally they're not on the ones that are out foraging. Does that answer your question? But like I said, if you're like not confident in that and you're like, I don't want to kill my queen, you could do there, just know it's not going to be as accurate. So I've got my bees here, I just check, no queen again. I bang it down to the bottom and then to the corner. I take a ½ a cup measuring cup, which is now dedicated to bees, right? So your wife doesn't get really mad at you or something. You scoop it and you put it into a mason jar with a lid, a mesh lid. So it's just a ring that's a mason jar ring, but then with a mesh. I don't know what the, yeah.
It's a ½ cup scoop of the bees that you just knocked down?
Yeah.
Mhm. And the ½ cup represents about 300 bees. So that's why there's that number. So you take that 300 bees, you drop it in, you screw your lid on. Then you take 1/8 of a cup, which is 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar, and you can put it on, or you can do an alcohol wash. Whatever, alcohol wash is more effective. Powdered sugar roll, some people say, and it doesn't kill the bees. Some people say it actually ends up killing the bees anyway. You might as well do the alcohol wash. So that's a preference thing. I'm not gonna, that's the Ask 10 Beekeepers Kill 11 answers. I've done both. And the 2 times I did an alcohol wash, I had 0 mites. And I just killed 300 bees. So I have a really hard time doing alcohol washes, right? So if I get a 0 with powdered sugar, then I'm often gonna like, I would consider doing, that's when I got a 0 with powdered sugar, so I thought, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do an alcohol wash, so I'm sure. And sure enough, here we're 0, so I was like, bummer, I just killed 386. Yeah. What's that? Oh yeah, I did. So I've got these, I just pour the powdered sugar on the top of the screen, and I push the powdered sugar down in. Then I just kind of do this to cover the bees. I'm not doing anything right now. Cover it, You shake them, make sure they're all covered. I'm not dumping it or anything like that. I'm just covering the bees. Then I put them in shade so they don't sweat, especially in the summer. They sweat a lot. But put them in the shade, let them sit for about 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Then after that time, I have a second tote because this one usually ends up with a lot of propolis on it after a while. I did it the first year. By the subsequent years, I've gotten a second tote. And that one, I take my jar. After it's been 5 minutes, I've done the rest of this box, essentially, maybe a second box. And then I take that jar and now I set a timer because this is really important. But you shake them into that white tote or whatever color, and you do that for a full minute.
With the screen on.
With the screen on.
You're
And
just
you're
shaking
shaking
out
them,
the
and you
mites.
can hear, I mean, they have exoskeletons, so you can hear them really going. You shake it down in, and you will see little bugs in the powdered sugar if you have a lot. But then after a minute of shaking them, you can set that to the side, open it up, dump your bees back in, move to your next box or whatever you're going to do. Then with this, I hand it to my husband, and he goes and puts water in it, and he counts the mites, because it's pretty hard to see through your screen.
The mites float covered.
They don't float, but the powdered sugar dissolves, so you can see them. They're really, really tiny, like
5 little pepper.
they look kind of like a pepper flake. Yeah, so they're reddish, and if you look, you can see their little legs moving.
Yeah.
So like I
Yourself
said,
a little-
yeah, you can get a magnifying glass. My friend Gordon has one. You guys may know him, some of you, but he has a magnifying glass. That's awesome. Like, you can watch them. But then you count. So different people like a different threshold. They used to say 8% threshold you needed to treat. I know they've come down to 4 or 6%. If I have 3 mites in it, especially wintertime, for sure I'm treating. In the summer, I've had 2 or 3. I might treat, I might not. Early summer, it depends. It kind of depends, but for sure this time of year, I would definitely treat if you have 3 on pints.
You're saying 3 mites, so 1%?
Yeah, I think that, yeah,
3 out of
2% for sure
300.
people would treat. But here's my thing, right? If I can knock it down so that they're healthier, I'm gonna do it, you know? So, and especially because I do a powder sugar roll, so if it's off, I might be at 4 or 5 mites, I don't know. But for me, I just do the powder sugar roll. So, like I said, I've had the alcohol wash twice. So that's what you do. Then you open the screen, dump the bees back in, which I told you, but then now you have this jar that you can do another thing, rinse those out. I kind of wish I could just kill those mites instead of like dumping them, and I'm like, are they going back somewhere? But yeah,
Sorry, so
don't apologize.
so when you're shaking, the mites are small enough that they're falling through the mesh screen into your other bin, so you can count them.
Right, and the bees stay in.
So the bees stay in. So, what was I going to ask you about that? It's okay. I'll get back to it later.
No, as soon as you're covered, it's like this.
Okay, shake them. Okay.
Yeah, so we just shake them in.
I remember. I'm so sorry. So the powdered sugar, what is that doing? Is coating the bees, of course, and is it like in a sense suffocating the mites? Like they need to.
Really, what
detach?
it does is it does, but the bees kind of start cleaning, and as they clean,
okay.
they go into that instant like something's on me, and they start knocking them off of each other essentially. So some people will treat by pouring powdered sugar in between your boards, right? Because the bees will then they'll take it and clean each other off. But unless you have like a screen bottom board way to catch those mites, they're just gonna fall down and then fall back up. So I don't think that's a really good mite treatment, in my opinion, beekeeper opinion.
I've also heard that the powdered sugar, the mites can't hold on.
Yeah, because it knocks them off, plus then they start kind of cleaning each other. So, yeah,
If you do an alcohol wash, so you don't have to worry about it crawling back up.
that's right. That's right.
But,
The bees
you
eat
don't have to sit in the shade or anything either.
No, with the
I mean, it
alcohol
kills
wash,
them right away.
it kills the bees right away.
Kills
Yeah.
the
It kills the
mites.
mites and then the bees, and then
You
you do
still
the
have
same
to
thing, you
shake
have to
it.
shake. You do, because that was one thing, I was like, oh, they'll just kind of float, but they don't, you still have to shake it pretty, really, really hard. The other thing that there is out there, which is more expensive than powdered sugar or alcohol, is that you can buy a CO2. Has anybody else heard of this or done it? Have you done it?
No, I've never done it.
So I know, because I was like, this is cool. But you do it, put them in this little jar and you give them CO2 and it knocks them out. But it makes the mites knock out too, right? And then you pull them out and you can pull the bees off and count. And then you put the bees back in your hive. It's like going under for anesthesia. So if you have a lot of money, or you know somebody that has a lot of money and wants to buy you something cool, like I want the CO2 thing. But it is only 300 bees. So, you know, you're gonna...
You said shake for 1 minute, but
What?
leave it sit for 5 in the shake?
Yeah, 2, I think 2 is pretty,
Doesn't matter?
it just
one-
needs to be long enough that they can take time to get them off. Am I on that number? I think that's right. So anyway, 2 to 5 minutes, yep, and then you shake them, then you can put the bees back in. The other bees, if they die, at least they get some sugar off of the other guys or something. They call them ghost bees.
Water is like powdered sugar.
In the tote?
In the tote.
Yeah, because the water dissolves the powdered sugar. So sometimes it's hard, because sometimes, especially, I don't find this in the fall as much, but in the spring and in the summer, the bees are hot. There's also a lot of water they're bringing in and stuff, so there's a lot of moisture. So sometimes your powdered sugar will clump, and you can't tell if there's a mite under it or with it. And so yeah, that helps. Also in the fall, like I just did one, and you've got the brood, right? But you've got honey. The honey's capped right now, whereas in the spring and summer it's not. So when you do it, sometimes you get that. So it's harder. So all you're doing with the water is just dissolving the powdered sugar, so you can see the mites. So.
But you would let it sit, like you said, your husband does that.
Yeah,
you let it sit for a while, because the mites can get out.
Yeah, no, you can let it sit for a little while. I mean, I've never seen them. I don't know. The one thing for me is I have more than one hive, so the reason I hand it to him, so he can get that number, he can rinse it out, get it in the sun, or use the sheet that we have, wipe it out, so we can do the next mite count. You know, so if you have more than one hive, either get a lot of totes and then just like this is number 1 and shake it into number 1 and here's number 2s and you have a 2 box or a tote, whatever. So that's with mites. Treatment, there's a really, really helpful treatment thing, and I'll see if we can get Laura to send it out, but let me see it. I sent it to the BAP kids. But you just go in and it says, what time of year is it? Do you have honey supers on? Is there a brood present? Do you have a queen? What's the temperature outside? And you click all these things. Do you want to go organic or non-organic? Are you okay using a pesticide or not? You know, like, not a pesticide, but like synthetic. Yes, thank you.
That's
so
Honeybee Health Coalition.
Honeybee Health Coalition. So if you search that up, and they will tell you, like, because of the time of year, because you have honey supers off, you can use these. Here are your options, and you can pick and choose. I think that's a really great way, because I can say, like, this is a great treatment, and you're thinking, I would never use that, right? Or vice versa. I'm like, I would never treat without sugar, you know? So that's a...
.com, Honeybee Health Coalition.org.
Just to get
He's
the
looking.
honeybee.
I paused because I saw him pull it up, right? Yeah.
Has anybody used
Apogard or Apogard?
Aprovar or Aprovar Pearls? Because that's all that the plant store is selling. What did it say?
Cal Ranch,
IFA.
IFA.
IFA is the only one selling that. So,
I think if I remember, yeah. Do you have the?
Yeah, it's Honeybee Health Coalition, one word, .org/Varroa Tool.
Yeah.
VARROA Tool, one word also.
Excellent. Thank you. Varroa tool.
Yeah. If you search for Honeybee Health Coalition, you'll get halfway through typing that and it will come up as a Google thing on you. You can always find us that way. Hey, it's terrific, you know.
Is that right? Fish.
HoneybeeHealthCoalition.org/Varroa Tool, yep.
You, right there.
Yeah, we just got Aprovar from Malay.
Yeah.
And so we put it on.
Is Aprovar, which one is Aprovar? Because
You put those little strips in every other
yes.
one. And we haven't done a bite count yet. We're supposed to do it this next week. They're supposed to be in there for a month. But when we did it, the temperatures were lower and
And then it got really bad. Usually you're okay because it's the first few days that it's critical.
Oh, okay.
Generally you're okay.
Yeah, people are going to do gas between certain temperatures and they'll say right on the results. And if you look into Studies of Health Coalition.
It will tell you.
General, you can say these are the temperatures.
It will say, don't use this over 90 degrees, because that's one of the problems we have in Utah, honestly, with mite treatments, is that we can't really treat in the summer. We're too hot. I mean, there's really not much you can do unless you're doing oxalic acid, generally speaking. There are some, but it is a lot trickier, especially because you have the honey supers, and so if you have those on, you can't use most of them.
So I was really surprised. I used Apivar at the beginning of the season, just because the reason of it is the same thing all the time.
Right. It is
right. You need to check up every now and then.
There are several.
So I did. I had a lot of bees dying. Like it was really kind of, she was, yeah. And I said, well, this is normal. But like, yeah, okay.
It is normal, but it is hard to watch that, right? I was going to say there are several, just since I've started, that used to be effective that you can no longer use. So it is really important to use this tool, to use different things and do rotate things around a little bit. Don't just always do the same thing. So that's for what it's worth. Yeah.
I've seen where oxalic acid, well, they always had, you could dribble.
Yes, the drizzle.
But I've seen advertised lazies where they have a long-term.
Yes, they do. On Man Lake, you can buy a long-term, a slow release, which is the same as the sponges that people were using. But they use a board. It's like, so you can look on Man Lake, they have it now. That's the one we were talking about. I think when I looked, it was $90 for a treatment. And I don't know if that was one treatment or a couple, but 90 it's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So that is an option, but it is a slow release, so. Okay, I'm gonna say this. So I got this one, I just went through this. There's brood, everything I kind of want to see in here. Generally, going into winter, your outside frame or two will be honey. If it's not, don't worry about it. Like sometimes the bees, I just think the bees often know what they're doing, right? And so I don't try and mess with it too much unless this box is completely empty and I'm like, I don't want to deal with wax moth in the bottom of this hive all when I come into it this spring, so I'll pull it. So then I have my sheet on here and you can pull it really quick, you know, and then you just add this next box up here and again, cover that one up. Then you have your sheet, put it on here, you can go through this one. If you're running mediums, you'll go through winter generally with 3 boxes. Your top one should for sure be 100% honey. That's to number 3 with food, making sure they have adequate stores. So you'll have that. With what your 3rd box will be honey. If you're running deeps, usually you'll run 2. Some people overwinter with 1. And I don't know what it is. They say you want it about, ready? 50 to 100 pounds of honey, you know? So good luck with that. First of all, I wish we all had scales under our hive so we knew exactly how much honey was on there.
Does it hurt your back? Then it's good.
Then, yeah. And that's what I will. I have ratchet straps around mine, and I will often, once I've ratchet strapped it, I will do this, you know, on the bottom box to kind of get a feel like, oh, that's, especially come November, December, January, I'm like, ooh, that one's really light. Then I'm going to make sure I'm feeding. And just keep going backwards, right? And then maybe you have your 4th box that now has honey in it, and you can take that over here to kind of go through it and pull frames using the sheet. That works really, really well when you're pulling honey too. And then I just put my hive back together. If you've had openings at all, you know, you'll want to get those closed up so they can propolis and get ready for winter. They will do their own. Sometimes you hate them. So last year I got into this one hive, bottom box, and I'm over here trying to get this frame out. I can't, and I think, okay, well, maybe it's really propolized here. I was almost breaking the frame, it felt like. So I came over here, pulled this one, I'm like, fine. get to number 3, so not very far in, right? And I can't pull it out. I'm like, what in the world is going on? I can't even move it. They had propolis along the entire bottom, backwards in this line, thick. It was like this thick on it, like 7 frames. And I was like, what in the world are you guys doing? Well, I don't think it was that. I think that they were getting robbed and the airflow, and so they just sealed it up. So they had this opening literally, and it came at an angle so they could come in and then go to all of the other frames. But I will tell you, I was so frightened. I was like, I'm gonna break all of these frames. But they knew what they were doing, and I messed it up. Because I was like, I'm not gonna deal with this come spring, right? When it's really hard to get to. In August and September, it's hot enough. At least it's sticky. And come spring, when it snaps, it's not so fun. So you're gonna wanna make sure you have enough food. One thing I would suggest is candy gourd. You might use it, you might not, but having it ready. I know one person that I just looked at actually makes little cups instead of making a big sheet, so they can get to it easier, like different ones. They like make little cups instead of making a big gourd. So a candy gourd is when you take, I think, I'm going off the top of my head, nobody write it down, right?
You put the screen, and then you mix up your sugar
Yeah,
with a little.
or if you don't have a screen. So you could build, you can take a little box and, cut that deep down to a medium and take that box that's left and put screen on the bottom. Yeah, Levi.
Where would you get the candy gourd?
So you can make it. So what you'll do is you take about 12 or 16 cups of sugar, and you add, I think, a half a cup of water. Some people add a little bit of vinegar so it doesn't go bad. You're gonna stir it, and you're thinking, this is not enough, right? And then a capful of, what is it called?
How much vinegar do we think about? It's like that with recipes somewhere.
Like, it's either, I think it's about 1/8 of a cup, so it's not a lot. I've never done the vinegar. Shelley uses the vinegar. I've never done that.
I use vinegar.
You use the vinegar too, Cole. I'd never heard of that, so it was my first year. And
I took a screen board, I went to the dollar shop, and I found some aluminum roasting pan with it, 2 of them.
right, perfect, this way.
Right, and then I don't use them in the hide. I take it in the house and I'll make a half a dozen or 8 pans of that stuff, and it stacks just like home plate.
Right on each other.
And when I need to put one in, I open it, and if it's empty, I slide one in, or just drops it off.
And do you do an extra? I just put mine right on top of my frames. But I know some people build a special box, they put it and they put it into the screen. I don't.
Yeah, I just use those, it looks just like maybe an inch thick, they're hard as get. Oh yeah, they're just like a dinner plate, a square thin thick. I just crack the box enough just to slide it in, drop it on the rack, and close it.
So once you mix the sugar and the water together, then you let it dry. I put it on a cookie sheet. I sometimes will do, I just use either tissue paper or newspaper and put it down, and then I put it down and I just flatten it down, so it's however thick you want it. And then, like Cole or what these, some people make it into discs, right? Like that's what I just read. I often will put my finger, just in random places, so they have holes to crawl up through, just because I don't know.
Wow.
That's.
What can say?
Anyway, and
Water, you don't have to heat it.
you just mix it.
There's a
Yeah.
bunch of different recipes.
There are tons of
The
different
one I
recipes.
follow, you actually boil it and
Yeah.
bring it to soft trap.
I know, different
It
people.
works great.
That's what
I put it in a half
Pretty
cookie
mix.
sheet
And you cook it to hard or to soft.
to soft trap.
Uh-huh.
It takes a lot longer before it gets good.
It does take
It's
longer.
like,
Water, that's the recipe I
I think
follow.
it's half cup. Yeah.
My kitchen is good.
Susan.
And then, do you put it in before it gets cold, and you
So-
leave it in there all winter?
No, so I usually wait until a warm day, usually in December. You could put it in November, but mid to end of December or January. And just kind of like an insurance policy. I've had hives before that don't touch it. I've had hives that have taken it and dumped it out the front of the hive. In Sword in the Stone when they're putting the sugar on top of the teacup and just as this big pile. That's what they did outside of the hive. And I was like, really? Like, do you know how much work that took? Anyway, and then some of them that ate it and used the whole thing. So so it depends on the hive, but it's an insurance policy, right? Like,
She drops some lemongrass oil.
yeah, so lemongrass oil in it, the other stuff that we sell, the honeybee health. Yeah.
So just to get an idea, I know it varies year to year, but if you have a whole sheet of that, you put it in, I mean, do you have to do that every week, or is that like it'll last all winter?
It should last pretty much all
If you make
winter.
a frame as big as your.
If you make one that's as big as your box
Yeah,
here,
it'll last quite.
it should last
Okay.
pretty much all winter, unless your hive doesn't have anything.
Okay.
And then you should keep on top of that, right? Like, you'll be able to get a good feel for that. When it's a warm day, go out. When the bees are out flying, just you pop the lid. Oh, there's still some, and you shut it. You know, you're not getting in, opening it up, and like, how are you guys doing? But you can open it up and just check to see if that is there.
But just one on the top box, you're not putting it in between?
Not in between,
Of
no.
the two boxes?
Because you want them to be able to move between the frames and whatever, get to where they need. This is like, we've gotten to the very top, we're out of food. That's when they would use it.
So the reason I don't put paper down or anything like that's an inlet seed, but I'd kick that sugar, bust it up, and use it to make sugar water.
Yeah.
In this part.
Yeah, you can
Oh, okay, so you can,
Just recycle it.
recycle it.
can you
Complicates
use
it.
your sugar boards, say they just need part of it one year, can you reuse it the next year?
Yeah, if they'll take it, yeah, for sure. I'd put them on if they've used it. One thing, my newspaper and my, the tissue paper, it usually just comes right off of it. So I've never, like, I just use it to,
Especially if you use.
but I like your, I have made them in half. Because here's my thing, I'm cheap. So and honey's not, I mean, sugar's not inexpensive, right? Especially right now when we're talking $20 for 25 pounds if you're using 16 cups and they're not gonna touch it, you're not gonna eat it. And yeah, you can use it for sugar water, but say you're not even gonna feed them sugar water in the spring. And so is that just a waste? So I have made the half. I just, on my cookie sheet, I just cut it in half and then I can check it a couple of times in the spring. So, the other thing some people I think would put up here that I don't have up there is insulation, right? And this one I think is not a principle of beekeeping. I think this is more an opinion of beekeeping. I will say that, and I was watching, I think it was David Burns the other day. Nope, it wasn't him, it was somebody else. But he said, if you're gonna insulate anything, not saying you don't insulate the sides, but make sure you do the top. That is gonna be, if you're gonna insulate anything, make sure you do the top. And that can be beneficial in the spring, summer, and winter. That's not something you have to take off at all. In the summer, it's gonna insulate against the heat. In the winter, it's gonna insulate against the cold. To answer your question, I wasn't avoiding it. I have never run to my hives. I've never done anything. When I did studying, when I first started, one of the things that it said was bees keep the hive at a certain temperature, right? And they wait to go on their cleansing flights. So I guess maybe if this is news to somebody, raise your hand. But they don't leave the hive in the winter until it's warm enough. And one of the things that I read is if you're insulating your hives, it's this false sense, and there's a lot of bees that actually will fly out thinking it's warm enough, and it's colder than they think because we've got insulation, and they go out and they die. And so you lose bees trying to save them. You know, it's not like often, that's part of why they put honey here. That creates its own insulation on the outside. On the outside frames, you'll see that. They are insulating their own hive. I'm not saying it's wrong. Shelly insulates. I know Ron always insulates. Jen and I both don't insulate. And maybe it's because I'm cheap too, but I don't think, I mean, really my decision came in from when I was studying it. I'm not saying it's wrong. I just think be careful. Don't overdo it. The bees really are really good at what they do, and they know what this box is like during the year, so they do put in. I've had some that do 3 or 4 frames and then just a little bit of brood, and I think that they know, like, we need a little more warmth or whatever. So, Jen.
Last year I did insulate the lids with the foam core insulation, and they came out as spring gangbusters.
They just put that on the inside of the lid? You know,
Just, you cut it to the size of the box, and so I just put it.
Did you put your inner cover and then that and then your outer cover?
No, I put that.
I I would think you'd put, because I know that they ate the insulation. My dad has what's the lid? Not the telescope lid, but the migratory lid. And he put the insulation and they chewed through it.
Oh.
They ate it like crazy.
I was a telescoping, so I
think it's inner
cover
than the
yes,
insulation.
actually, for sure, because it fit really well
Inside of the lid.
The telescoping.
Was that, what are you talking about first of all?
I bought, it was like, yeah,
It's the,
it's
it
a
is
top.
should have had it.
Just
I think, is it the pink?
It's rated like,
Okay, purple. I was gonna say, I think it is the purple that we have used.
that's
An
the
inch.
recommended flash.
Yeah.
An inch should have it. It's like a foam, you know.
Yeah.
But it's more solid.
Yeah. So,
But then I put that on top of, put it on top of the inner cover on top of the sugar board and just.
right. You put your sugar board, then your inner cover, then your insulation, and then your lid. One other thing that I will say, not a principle, but a lot of people do it around here, is you can put a box that you've created, again, a smaller one with some screen, or I don't remember, screen, and then you put like a fabric,
Yeah.
and then you add cedar shavings.
It's a quilt box.
A quilt box. That's what it's called, is a quilt box, and so you can put that. So here's the deal in winter. One of the things you're to be aware of is that you do not want your bees to die because they got wet. Because as they create moisture, they're creating heat that condenses, it rises to the top. So see there, that's where if this is really cold, it's gonna condense on that even more. So if you've got that insulated, it condenses on the top and it can drift back down onto your brood, not your brood, your ball of bees. So a couple of things you want to do is have something that can take that moisture. That's where a quilt box comes in. That's where a candy board is really helpful actually, because it absorbs that moisture. The sugar just takes it and it can absorb it. So it's really helpful for that as well. The other thing you do want to do with your hives for winter is tilt them forward a little. If you don't run them that way all year, that way if water does condense, or when it does, it comes up, it condenses right here on the lid, and then it runs forward and down and out, instead of just drip down onto the bees.
If you insulate your top, then the hot air will hit that and go to the sides, condense on the sides and
then
run
go
down. I had a steady stream of water running out the front of my hives all winter long.
And
I use an in-hive feeder,
Yes.
an inline feeder, put it in my bottom box in the winter, and in the spring it was completely full of water.
full of water. Isn't it amazing? So that is really that's really a
Everything was
testament that,
dripping up.
that it is coming to the sides.
I am an
down.
insulator. There's a lot, this
Do
is
you
a hot topic. There's a
Yeah.
lot of research out there about insulation
Not
versus
insulating.
ventilation.
Yep.
And it's starting to shift towards insulating and actually insulating all year long.
Okay, and I can see that, right? Like if you're gonna
Because
do
when you
it,
think about it, right, your house is insulated. You don't take the insulation out in the summertime.
right?
Because the insulation keeps
Keeping.
hot air in the winter and
And
cool
the
air
cooler.
in the summer. Then you gotta think about with bees, right? You don't wanna run your furnace, so natural gas is our fuel
Right, theirs is
that
their
we're
own
burning,
body.
and honey is their fuel
Yeah.
that they're burning to keep that hive warm.
So how do you insulate on the
I
sides?
buy the inch thick,
The purple.
that's not, I don't buy the purple stuff because it's more expensive.
Okay.
I got the cheapest one there is.
Okay, I'm
And then
not
just
the
got
only
it
cheap
shape
thing.
and take
What?
it around.
Yeah, that half inch or inch thick.
It's the inch
It's the
stuff.
inch.
It's an R7 insulation rating.
Okay, and one thing I was reading, Daniel, I'll get you just a second, but one of the things that I did read about that, because I was doing some more research on that, but you can take a tool and scratch up the inside of your wood right here, and the bees will go to it and they'll propolize it, and that will create its own insulation, water resistant. So that's something that you could do, is take the hive and you just scratch it up.
Of course.
Yes, a coarse sandpaper, and you'll see, but they will propolize on the side that will go in, and that creates an insulation too. Daniel?
We gotta stop thinking that bees are human. They did not develop these wonderful Langstroth hives to show us how to keep them. We are keeping them because of our greed, our curiosity, or whatever. Think of like a bee. Where do they want to nest? They want to nest in a tree somewhere. And they usually find a hollow tree. Is that insulated? Well, to some, yes. To some, no. But basically, what I've read is if you're gonna insulate once, and that's like the Leggins hive, where they have a 2-inch insulation of wool. And that's just so that the summertime is cooler, the wintertime is warmer. I've also seen it on Langstroth hives that have been modified. I've seen it on deep Langstroths. I've seen it on various other things, and they insulate because it does balance the weather.
Right.
But if the bee is not used to it, whether it be a thick tree or whether it be a thin tree or whatever it is, the bees will, I mean, if it happens only in the wintertime, yeah, they're not going to accommodate. They're going to go test the waters and you may lose your hive. There's lots of reasons for bees to leave, and basically the biggest reason I found to leave is because we're so doggone curious as to what they're doing that we think we know better than they do as to what to do. So my best advice to everyone all the time is get your nose out of the hive and leave it alone.
And I'm going to say this. See, this is why I went with 3 principles and not the opinions, right? Because this is where we get into that. But no, I know what you're saying, and I think one thing that I think though is important, especially with your first couple of years of beekeeping, I think it's so important you're getting into your hives, going against what Daniel said, but also going to go with him, so that you know what's normal. So that when you're in your 3rd year and you get in, you're like, oh yeah, this is totally fine for this time of year. And then you can just get out. I know some people can be in and out of hive in 15 minutes. How many of you can be in and out of a hive in 15 minutes? How many of you that raised your hand have been doing this more than a year?
You too.
Yeah, all the right.
Make a plan.
So,
Everything ready.
yes, having things in and out, but I think it's so important. I could not say this is normal by not having been in the first little bit. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so going with what Daniel said, yes, there is this level of leave them alone, but there is a level of you've got to know what's going on, because if you don't, you are more likely to lose them. Real quick, when you insulate your hive year round, how do you do it?
I haven't started year round.
Okay, I was gonna say, how do you do it when you're getting in and out? Because that's one of the thoughts I've had.
Right,
like,
yeah,
if
that's
you
why
do-
I haven't.
Yeah, like, I am not
Other
unwrapping
than
this insulation
you
every
graduate
time.
and start buying those Apamate hives that are
Yeah, that are already being,
insulated.
yeah.
The biggest advocate of insulation that I've seen on the web is Frederick Dunn.
Yeah.
And he has come to the realization, and he has experimented with he has 40 hives now.
Yeah, he's a huge
with
scientist.
every kind,
Mhm.
but he uses double bubble.
Double what?
Double
It's
bubble.
called double bubble. It's fairly expensive, but if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, they'll have it. You can actually put your hand in there and feel the heat from your hand radiate back. So you can feel the insulation quality, but he does it all year round. And he's simply because of what you said, the water going to the top. You don't
Right.
want it to come back onto your.
What's double bubble? It's just an insulation station.
Insulation
I don't know the trade name, but he just called it double bubble.
I will say this,
Silver
if you're gonna listen to somebody on the internet, Frederick Dunn is a huge one that's really good. But I will say this, he has a lot more money than I do. And so there's a lot of stuff, I'm like, that's amazing. But as a beekeeper that has a couple of hives, I can't afford, and I don't make money, right? Like, I'm not making, and he's getting paid to do his show. He does he's an amazing job.
Well, he gets his YouTube channel, but
Yeah,
he is,
he's a master beekeeper.
but he has the type of mind that he's experimenting.
Right, he always is.
He's an engineer by trade, so.
Yes, he's
And
amazing. Frederick Dunn is a really amazing one. I do say watch out if you're watching on YouTube, because there's a lot of idiot beekeepers out there. Just saying. And the other thing is there aren't very many that have the same kind of, they don't have the same gear. They're like, oh, right now, what? They're out.
Climate.
The climate is totally different. Nobody's from out here. They're all back east, where it's like, they're like, oh, we're in a dearth, and we only got an inch of rain this month. I'm like, oh, yeah, we haven't gotten an inch of rain in the last 2 months, right? So just a different, you have to be careful what you're taking in from that. So my 3 things, really, queen right, make sure you have a good queen going into winter. If you don't, consider combining them. But like I said, if this is diseased or there's something going on that you're like, The other thing is, try it out. I did one time, had one hive, that was a rough year, and there were 3 frames of brood. And I was like, yeah. It was my son's. He was so excited that his bees were doing so well. And I'm like, they're not going to make it through the winter. And they did. And not only did they make it through, but they were so strong come spring. So don't underestimate it. It's like Daniel said. They've been doing it for a while. They can figure it out. Just make sure you've set up the right kind of conditions for them to be able to survive. Queen right, make sure the mite count is really low. In Utah, just so you know, over 80% of hive losses are from mite loss, from mite. So if you do one thing, make sure your mites are low. If you don't do that, you're really high. And then the third thing is making sure there's enough food. Again, 50 to 70, or 50 to 100. They say here because it's so cold, but I think we're more 50 than it used to be. I think it used to be 70 to 100, but I think most of the time you can.
Last year was 50 pound year. The year before that, when winter never ended,
yeah,
was
that one was
120
100.
pound.
Yeah, it was a tough. Yeah, I was really worried about that. You had a question.
Yeah, when you do the oxalic acid dribble.
Yeah, when do you do it?
When?
You can do it now as long as it's not too cold. Yeah.
You want it to be a little bit cold.
I thought you wanted to do it when it was cold.
Okay. Yeah, it is. You do. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, now it's been a while.
Look at the 10-day forecast on the weather.
Yeah, I think this
We're
next
gonna get
Saturday,
cool
we're gonna be
weather.
64 or something.
Not this weekend, the next weekend.
Next Friday's supposed to have a low of 34.
Yeah, so, and I have to start pulling garbage and stuff. Yeah,
So when I do my mite count this week after the APCAR, it's been 1 month, and let's say I get a high mite count.
Right.
I can just follow that up with an oxalic acid.
yeah, or just another treatment, and go to the Honeybee Health Coalition, look and see what would be a good option, reach out to a couple of people. But yeah, you definitely, I will say that in a second. Go ahead with your question.
Other interesting comment too, that, was it Jen Crowder who was here from the
Yes.
state? She mentioned that, let's see what's up, Baroxan, I don't know if you, that's a new treatment that's also just out, which is essentially an OA impregnated cardboard strip that's approved though. Those are now available to purchase.
And do you know how much those are? Are they through Man Lake?
I think that's where I saw it.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Baroxan. I think that's right.
Baroxan, yeah. And so it's an oxalic acid, essentially those pads that we've talked about here before, but they're approved, and I think you put in like 4 little strips per brood box. Yeah, that's super. Seems like that would be super easy. I would try it, but and then one other thing I want to say when you're talking about insulation, there's a couple folks that sell a insulated inner cover.
Yes.
And there's one of those that has incorporated in it a small feeding shim. So it's got insulation on the top, and you can take that
David Burns talks about that.
and instead of using that feeding shim, you can put a piece of
the sugar board in Canada.
well, no, you could do that too, but you put a piece of it's like a fiberboard in there and then this is what IFA I think is where I saw it. It was IFA's site. So you put a piece of fiberboard, cut a piece of fiberboard you can get anywhere, and put it in there. So you're insulated on top of that, and then the fiberboard collects all of the water, and it just goes in there and collects, kind of like your kind of like that quilt box you mentioned.
Right.
So collecting that fiberboard, so you have this one-piece thing that's insulation on top, fiberboard on the bottom.
So it collects the water.
I've used those for a couple of years now, and they're great. And you can tell that they collected water in them.
Because the fiberboard gets wet.
The fiberboard's been dry when I've seen it, but I've tacked it in with some nails, and the nails are all rusty in the spring, and so I've now gone to a nail that won't rust as well. And you can see a little bit of darkening on the back side of the board and stuff. But that's another option that for me has worked out really well. So
Thank you. I was gonna say this, we are having really unusually warm weather. So I will say this, if you did a mite treatment a month ago and you treated and you checked after the treatment and your mites were low, check again. I almost lost a hive one year because I did that. I treated really late. It was like the treatment came off late September and checked again in October and it was back up to 8 or 10 or something. So just because you knocked it down a month ago, you know, check again, just double check that because mites really are the killer for your hives over winter. So, yeah.
I have a question about space. So currently, we have 5 boxes completely full, and we took 8 gallons of honey.
I know, here's hives,
for
amazing.
two hives. And they're still collecting all of the ragweed, everything else that's out there. So they're always bringing in more.
They're actually just robbing from everybody else's hive. No, just kidding. He doesn't live by anybody else's hive.
So I guess my question is, like, how do you know, you're supposed to consolidate so that they cluster, I guess. How do you know, like, how to take the boxes off when? Who told that?
I would just take it down in 3 boxes. I mean, if it's really, you know, tons and tons, but I would wait till you're getting colder because then they will cluster and they're not going to care. Cole, anybody else that's been beekeeping a long time? Jen, have you ever left 5 boxes on? Would you always, even if it's a really strong hive, you take it under their mediums?
Yeah, I would take it down with turning it.
Yeah.
3. So you would have what? 2, one honey super and the other 2 just the
Yeah, and you might, I mean, if you've got a huge hive, you can tell numbers of bees, right? If you're looking at your box and there's bees all over every box, you might consider just leaving it at 4 and leaving it with 2. But you don't really want to do, you know, the more space you leave them, the more they have to keep it warm, like insulate. So, but if you have a huge number of bees, you don't want to be feeding them all winter either because the deeps don't hold as much, I mean, the mediums don't hold as much weight as far as honey. A deep, you're talking, 70 pounds? More, depends on how thick it is and stuff, but this is closer to 50 to 70, so it depends on how they've thrown it out. So,
Well, at some point, it's going to cool down and queens are going to slow down.
yes, they are. And I think
So your hive will start to shrink.
yeah, it will just
You're in
naturally,
there.
you'll see that. And so,
Like, I'm
right
afraid
now,
you
you're
have to
good.
take more honey,
Yeah.
which is a good thing to do, but yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to, you're worried about that, I'm sure, but yeah, Daniel.
A year ago, I had a box, I run 2 brood boxes, 2 large. And I had one that had 10 frames full of honey on the top. Checked them to make sure there was somebody, you know, that they were queen right on the bottom and everything was going well, they were strong. Got into springtime, and what I'm looking at is, are they gonna eat the honey or do I take it? In springtime, I can take the honey, but in the wintertime, I can't give it to them.
Right.
So far better to leave plenty of honey and take it later than to come up short and hope you can find sugar or a substitute, or, you know, because they prefer their own honey to anything that we can give. So it's, everything I'm reading is exactly that way, is once you take the honey from the honey supers, anything else that they get through the year, but through the rest of the year, you leave it, give it to them.
But I also, like he wasn't sure, I mean, you probably could have taken it and where they're still bringing it in. Yeah, I'd probably take that for the promise, but yeah.
So kind of, let's say, leave it, and as they're eating it, take it during the winter. You don't want to open up. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take it during the winter at all. I mean,
So that would mean I'd have 4 boxes.
yeah, and I don't know, let's talk to Shelley, because she does run the mediums, and see, I know there has been, I think one winter she ran with 4, so we'll talk to her and then,
I did get the Hive Haven or heater, whatever that was.
Yeah.
That's been advertised, so.
I ran one of those last winter.
How did it go?
I mean, it was fine, but all my hives, so
They all did fine.
they all did fine. But it did seem like it was a little.
It was a nice winter.
It was a nice winter, so it was kind of tricky. Yeah.
Can I just ask real quick about pollen patties? Does anybody teach?
So this time of year?
Yeah, that's a spring thing, right?
Yes, yeah. So pollen patties help with the brood, and you
Get them started.
Yeah. You don't want, you're not gonna do that.
That's what I was
I know some people will put it into their candy board. I don't know why you do that unless it's a candy board that you save till April and you put it on in like March or April and you put it on and it has the pollen in it. But other than that, no, I wouldn't do a
My bees
patio.
never touched a pollen patio.
Yeah.
I tried that one year.
That's, yeah, it's pretty tricky around here, I think.
Is it normal to see bees still bringing in a ton of pollen?
Yes. So, about 5 years ago on December 25th, my bees were bringing pollen in. And I was like, what are you doing? Like eating poinsettias? I don't know. Like, but yeah, so don't be surprised. Like it was a warm Christmas and it was awful. And I went to check on them to see if they were alive. And I was like, well, they're alive. They're bringing in pollen. So yeah, it's not abnormal.
So then they're just saving it up for the spring, is that what it is?
Yeah, and just for winter, right, is they use it a little bit, but yeah. Okay, anybody have any questions? Anything you wanted to know that I didn't answer or things you wanted to ask that we didn't even talk about?
I have one more.
Yeah.
The bottom sliding board.
Yeah.
Is
So you have
this
you have a screen board?
Yeah, I have a screen board. Is this a good time? I mean, I don't know.
So this
a
is
good time
an
to put it
ask
back?
a beekeeper question, and I'll tell you, some people will say definitely put in your thing, others say leave it open for winter and run it that way all winter, so that's up to you. You get to decide.
Are you talking about your user?
No, to put in.
Like the
Whiteboard that just like.
Yeah, like that plastic slide board that
So
goes to
it
the
makes it
bottom.
so it's a solid bottom board for
Yeah.
winter, right? That's what you're asking, if you put in the solid bottom board or leave it open for winter.
Yeah, for insulation.
Yeah,
Makes any
so
difference.
that's a, yeah.
Like Caleb,
I would close that.
Caleb runs screen bottom boards during the summer and then switches this time of year to the solid.
To a solid, he actually like pulls the bottom board
Pulls the
off
bottom board
and puts on a
and
solid.
switches it up.
And Mike Schaefer runs it screen all
I
year.
run screen all year.
Just
You
open.
run screen all year, but he insulates. Just kidding.
I am an insulator.
But yeah,
Just like if you're away home in the winter, no, just kidding.
Sorry, so you've got a screen bottom board, but are you sliding that plastic sheet?
I leave it in all
he
year.
leaves it.
Oh, you do? You don't even pull it out for summer?
So you leave it.
Leave the plastic in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just so that helps me keep track of mites as well.
Yeah. 'Cause
I clean it
has
off
that.
every couple of weeks. And
I've left the screen completely open for the last 4 years. I don't really see any difference. Some years they die, but hey, some of yours died too.
Right.
So, you know.
Not mine, but some others, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so it's just the thing, if they're gonna die, they're gonna die, and if they're not gonna die, they're gonna live, so. Screen bottom board doesn't seem to have much to do with how they do throughout the winter.
Okay, yeah, so that one is ask beekeepers, that's what, and I don't know, you know, that's one of those ones I would check and see if like,
if those three things aren't done, then it doesn't matter.
yeah, that's exactly right. Like some of those other things, I think that's kind of the fun scientific part that we get with Frederick Dunn. He does that kind of experiment, like, right, I'm gonna run these hives and I'm gonna do with the screen and without, and I'm gonna see, and he does, because he's an engineer, he puts like temperature things, does it stay the same, does it really affect it? So you could look on Frederick Dunn's website and see, you could do a search, he is really done a lot of knowledgeable things, so that's something you could look and see if there is any basis. Yeah, his is a rabbit hole. If there's any basis in closing it up or not. I know he lives in like Virginia, or he lives back in the eastern Pennsylvania.
Frederick lives northwest Pennsylvania.
And he gets snow, like, and he doesn't do anything with the front. Like if there's snow, he lets the bees burrow their way out, and they'll have like tunnels. And so, I mean,
That's probably good insulator.
yeah, he actually said that, is that it helps. The snow is a good insulator. So those are my three things. And the other thing I would add is make sure you have something for water. Just that, I didn't put that up there, but just make sure that they can get. And the other thing for winter is just that in winter, they will need water on some of those days, especially if we have like a really nice winter when it's really not winter, there's not snow. You know, try and keep something out there that they can get.
Just in front of the hut.
Yeah, you know, away from it, wherever your water source is now.
Your neighbor's hot tub.
Your neighbor's hot tub. They will love that because of the chlorine too, but your neighbors won't love it so much.
Oh, I found out that if you don't want bees to go to water, bees put peppermint oil in because.
Well, and that,
So if your neighbor actually does have a hot tub, you can just give them a little heads up and say, hey, I've got bees, if you don't want them in your water.
Try the peppermint oil. Try the peppermint oil. That's good to know.
Really does change.
Yes. Oh, it works. It does.
And you smell great when you get out.
that's what I was gonna say, I don't like that, that would feel like.
I have little grandkids and we have the, the doggy pool
Yeah.
at the kid and the bees are all coming and I'm like, okay, this isn't gonna work. So I looked it up and I'm like, okay, peppermint oil, I have that.
Sprinkles, yes.
Sprinkle, sprinkle. I even just put it in a spray bottle, with a little bit of alcohol in it to, to spread it and I just spray all around the outside of it. Yeah, they come and they go, okay,
No.
and especially if you have lemon tree oil.
The lemongrass oil.
Lemongrass oil, excuse me, somewhere else.
Yeah, then you go to the lemon, yeah, so you do it off of every
Yeah,
calling.
you're like, here, this is for you,
This is not for you. Okay, yeah.
So I guess they're getting the water through the snow.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really hard in the winter, right? Like who,
So as long as there's snow, you're fine.
I mean, yeah, and they're getting water inside the hive too, the condensation, I'm sure they're collecting some of that
I
too.
love my vinyl fence. They'll line up on the seam in my vinyl fence. There'll just be 1,000 bees on the seam.
Getting water out.
Sucking water out of the seam.
Yeah. See, they protect your stuff too, right now. Does anyone else have any questions? Do you feel? And I'm gonna say this really quick. For those of you who are first year beekeepers and maybe even second year, you've done a full year, congratulations. And next year, you're gonna be like, I have no idea what I'm doing. That's okay. I want you to feel that way because you are gonna feel that way. And you're gonna be like, I should know this. I did this last year. You're not gonna have a clue. It's always different every single year. I've been doing it for a long time and every single time I get in a hive, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, is the learning curve over at some point? No, it's not. I could tell you some really amazing stories that happened this year with that. So, any other questions, Jen?
Yeah, talking about it where you sit up, because I feel like that every time we have on like, not with theory. So I've come to people asked this, I have really hard time seeing eggs, and I've never seen it.
Me too.
I take out a flashlight. So, yeah.
So I don't dare check the lines. I pulled them all apart, but I was like, I hadn't had the queens in here. But I did I could see like brood, like the little worms. Yeah. So that was in all of them.
So evidently you had eggs.
That's good.
Yeah, so that's a good sign, but yeah, I mean, obviously this time of year, I'd say you're pretty good, but I would still say you have to do it by count. So worst case, pull this from the honey frame but pull from the green frame. Yeah.
This time you might not see the pigs.
Yeah, it's,
Because they're not there.
well, they are still, she is still laying quite a bit because of how warm it's been. Normally this time of year, you're right, you don't see very many.
How far out are you with the larva? How many days into the cycle is the larva?
So-
7.
So, no, I mean, larvae past 8 days, so like 4 or 5 days, right?
So you know the queen's been there for at least 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, which is not all bad, right? But that's really your right? So that's the thing, if you get in and you see the larva but no eggs, and you wait 2 weeks to get in, now you've been queenless for probably a month. See, so, I mean, if you're checking every week, then it's maybe a little different.
I'm the same, sir. I can't hardly see it, and I've been doing this for like 4 years, and I've never seen an egg.
Yeah, check, I know, so.
So I just did bi-hive inspections yesterday, and again, hard to see. I get my camera out and take pictures on
Pictures, and then you
video,
can zoom in.
and then you
That's
can
also
zoom
great.
in on them, because I had one, I could not find eggs, but on the
But on the
video, it
camera,
clear
you
as
can
day.
see, yeah, that's a really great, thank you. That's, the only suggestion is, like, put it in a plastic bag first or something, so you don't get moths all over your phone, right? The other thing is, watch for robbing right now. You can, I have a friend, they lost both of their hives to robbing, completely gone. 100% gone, right? So don't think like, oh, everything's fine, like, keep your eye out. That's why I used the sheets today. If you see robbing, you're gonna notice it, there's gonna be bees that are like spinning in a circle, maybe down on the landing board or on the ground in front of the hive. So what you can do is take a sheet and you just get it damp and you drape it over the top of your hive. And then that helps. The bees that live there can smell the pheromone, the bees that can't can't really figure out. You'll see a whole bunch like everywhere else, but
So the ones that are spinning are the robbers, or?
they're bees fighting. So yeah,
Oh,
you've got
okay.
one from the hive and then a robber. Yeah, or like if you're in the hive, you probably have seen it where one comes in and then they start chewing on the leg and like chasing it around and trying to get it out. So, just watch for things like that, especially if you're doing a deep hive inspection. I really suggest like doing something so that you don't just open up your hive and you're getting a hive tool and everything is open. You could lose your hive.
I've always done this. I've never had a negative effect of it. I don't open up my restrictor. I leave it at whatever the smallest is, and I never had a problem
With the rob.
with robbing.
Yeah.
I've still got pollen coming in, so I know those are my bees.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that?
No, I mean, I think it works. I was gonna say, that's not one of the words rules I'm gonna cover.
I don't even open it up in the spring, and they seem to decline.
Yeah, no, I don't think, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I think that's great. If it works, use it, right? Yeah.
I was just watching the other day, out in front, there's a bunch of sick bees crawling around on the ground. So I'm hoping that they're just the
ones that are the foraging.
going away. But then I saw this little, not wasp, but the yellow jackets come over and kill the bee.
Yeah.
And they're going after the bees for food, I guess.
Yes, because they eat at their carnivores, right?
I saw a bee kill the yellow jacket.
Yeah, it's fun when you get to, you're like, go after it.
Go.
Good job, right? So next month, we're not meeting here. It should come in the email, but we're meeting at the Linden Nursery. That's the address. And then just use the Honeybee Health Coalition's website for learning what's a great thing. The last thing is, I have a whole bunch of boxes, and there's some out in my car, I didn't bring them all. I brought them to the barbecue last month, so if anybody is interested in buying them, they're not from me, they're from a beekeeper whose husband had a massive heart attack and died, and she said, I cannot keep bees without him being able to lift the boxes. So Healthy Hives, she sold the bees, but I have the boxes. So if you're interested in buying a used box, I have these ones, and then also we have these, and the money goes towards FAB for next year. So supporting the young beekeepers. So if anyone's interested in that, I don't really want to have to take a bunch of my garage again because I already did that for the barbecue. But anyway, a couple of them have some frames. They would need wax put on them, but there's not a ton of framed ones, just boxes.